Hi everyone, Jason here from Spiritualbabies.net. You've joined us this week for another episode of the Haftarah Halfhour. As we are every week, we're joined by Rabbi Joshua Neely, who gives us his expertise as he guides us through the Haftarah portion. Welcome back, Rabbi Neely, and thanks for joining us again.
Of course, good day to you.
So we are in, it's a nice narrative piece today. In the last few weeks, we've had kind of prophet poetry, and we've been looking at those. This week, we've got a story to follow.
Absolutely. It's not a bad point to make that the book of Judges, a lot of people don't consider to be one of the prophetic works because it doesn't contain a lot of this will happen in the future sort of discussion. But in Judaism, we don't define prophetic works based upon the predictions that the text is making, but based upon the authorship ascribed to them. And the book of Joshua, the book of Judges, the books of Samuel, and the book of Kings are all considered prophetic works because they are attributed to prophets who wrote them down, and therefore their words are taken more seriously than you would just assume for a history book. Of course, we can learn lots of lessons from them for our future as well, but that's almost as an aside as far as their categorization as being the works of the prophets.
And I guess, I mean, as we go through this, we're going to kind of reveal who it's about, but I mean, there has to be a reason that that particular person was picked to carry this particular blessing, if you like. I mean, I get the impression that God knows all things, so he must have known this is going to end differently to what you might expect. And that I guess the lesson from this story is as important as some of the lessons we've got from Isaiah and Jeremiah in the last few weeks.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we are here for the Haftarah of Naso, and it's in the book of Judges 13:2 through 25, and it starts. There was a certain man from Zorah, the stock of Dan, whose name was Manoah. His wife was barren and had borne no children. Good bit of extra information there. It wasn't that she became barren; she was barren and didn't have any kids ever.
Correct, because we do see the opposite situation in a number of places where somebody may have had a child and then stopped having children. And this is pointing out that she could have no children and she had no children.
An angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, "You are barren and have borne no children. You shall conceive and bear a son. Now be careful not to drink wine or other intoxicants or to eat anything unclean. For you are going to conceive and bear a son. Let no razor touch his head, for the boy is to be a Nazarite to God from the womb on. He shall be the first to deliver Israel from the Philistines." So I think we first need to kind of go through what a Nazarite is. And then the difference is because I don't think every Nazarite, or indeed any other Nazarite, had such staunch, like from an embryonic status, he was to not touch any wine. So can you run us through what exactly this means?
Well, the Nazarite, first of all, we should point out is the link to our Torah portion. The Torah portion of Naso details the rules of the Nazarite, of the Nazir, and this is picking up on that theme as Shimshon, the guy who we're going to be talking about in more detail, the son that's about to be born, is the most famous Nazir that we ever encounter. So the Nazir in general is meant to, let me back it up, the Nazir is a person who has taken a voluntary oath to dedicate a portion of their life, a time, whether it be a month, whether it be a year, to God by adding additional stringencies to themselves in a certain way. And they don't have any liquor, they don't cut their hair, they are more scrupulous about being distant from things that are tameh, that are ritually impure, and at the end of it, they come, they get a haircut, and they offer a sacrifice, and their period of Nazirut, of their Nazarite vow, is over. There really is not much precedent for the idea that someone would be made a Nazir before they were born. This is rather exceptional that's occurring here. Well, it's unique, I think we can say, more than just exceptional. Additionally, the idea that being a Nazir would lead this person to be then a redeemer from the Philistines is also a rather unusual idea. The vow of the Nazir is never mentioned as giving any special power, as giving any special authority, as making someone more fit to be a leader. And we're going to have to try and navigate what this whole Nazir vow is doing with regards to this particular person. But I imagine much of that we'll discuss when we get to the end as we talk about our mystery baby.
Well, I wanted to ask because it struck me that in the last few weeks we've seen the birth of Israel as a nation, and then especially last week the component parts where you've got the Cohen and the four groups of the Cohen, and then you've got Israel, the tribe of family of Israel, which are the 12 groups there, and then you've got the sojourners, which are with them. What was do you know what the point of a Nazarite was? I mean, what purpose did it fulfill? Is it a purely personal thing that someone decides to take on? What are the benefits? What's the job description?
Well, according to the Torah, the vow is not given much context. It's simply if a person chooses to do it, here's the way they do it. According to the Chachamim, the sages of the rabbinic period, they said that a Nazarite might choose to do this for their own personal dedication, but it wasn't exactly recommended. In fact, they argued that the sacrifice that the Nazir brought at the end of their period of the vow was a bit like a sin offering, that they were having to make up for the fact that they had voluntarily taken additional stringencies upon themselves, essentially for no good reason. That for whatever reason they had felt that the Torah itself wasn't good enough, and now they were putting more limits on themselves, and therefore this was not something that was lauded or recommended. Excessive piety was always a big concern in the rabbinic period, and the vow of the Nazir seemed to be leaning in that direction.
A woman went and told her husband, a man of God came to me. I've always find it very interesting because certainly from my tradition, whenever we read angel in a text, we were to think of a guy in white with wings and a halo, and he comes fluttering down. But the fact is that most of the time when angel comes up, it's messenger, right? It's a mouthpiece.
Well, it's a word that has both meanings. That is to say, the word malach can mean an angel in the sense that it is clearly a representative messenger from God, or it can mean a human messenger, depending upon context. And oftentimes I believe that there is deliberate ambiguity in the text precisely because there is ambiguity in our own experience of these events. And we shouldn't think that we will be able to recognize a malach ha-Elohim, as she's going to say, an angel of God, a messenger of God, because they'll be in long white robes with big fluffy wings. We'll recognize them by the deed they do, by the message they bring, not necessarily by their costume.
He looked like an angel of God, very frightening. I did not ask where he was from, nor did he tell me his name. He said to me, you are going to conceive and bear a son. Drink no wine or other intoxicant, and eat nothing unclean, for the boy is to be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. This
whole phrase in verse 6 that he was a man of God because he appeared like a angel messenger of God, and there was a lot of he was Norah, which is the word that's best translated probably as, you know, awesomely generating within me trembling and a bit of unease because this is overwhelming me. The standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon feeling. This is amazing, and also I'm terrified. And that it's a very powerful description of what she had, and she's trying to explain it to her husband who wasn't there. But how do you really explain those emotions to someone who didn't experience it?
Okay. 8. Manoah pleaded with the Lord. Oh my God, he said, please let the man of God you sent come to us again, and let him instruct us on how to act with the child that is born. God heeded Manoah's plea, and the angel of God came to the woman again. She was sitting in the field, and her husband Manoah was not with her. The woman ran in haste to tell her husband. She said to him, "The man who came to me before has just appeared to me." Manoah promptly followed his wife. He came to the man and asked him, "Are you the man who spoke to my wife?" "Yes," he answered. Then Manoah said,
Well, we can just pause there for a second in the narrative, because this exchange is really quite striking, and of course the Midrash picks up on it. Of why didn't he believe her? Why did the angel come back a second time? Why did the angel come back a second time to her rather than appearing to the husband? This is a very awkward narrative. If it was going to be done smoothly by Hollywood, the angel should have appeared the second time to the husband. He was the one who requested it, or at least appear to both of them when they happen to be together rather than just her. And the Midrash picks up on this and said that actually Manoah and his wife were going through a little bit of a difficult period at this time with each other, relationship-wise. That each of them blamed the other for the lack of children. Remember, we may be the omniscient reader who has an omniscient narrator that tells us the woman is barren. Ancient world, you have no fertility tests. All you know is that this couple has not produced any offspring. And the Midrash says she blamed him and he blamed her. And the idea is that the angel came not just once, but came a second time in order to try and reconcile the husband and wife together, to bring peace between them. And that's why we end up with this weird second segment where it wants the husband to listen to the wife, and it wants the wife to bring the husband, that they have to work to come together in order to, well, truly be a good husband and wife, and then ultimately be good parents for their child. The idea that the Midrash introduces of this being a reconciliation between husband and wife also harkens back to our Torah portion, because also in Naso we have the story of Sota, the story of the bitter waters that a suspected adulteress is made to drink, which according to Jewish understanding was not a trial for the woman, but was in fact an attempt to reconcile a jealous husband to his wife. The idea wasn't that you would prove her guilt, but that you would prove her innocence. And therefore the husband and wife would be able to go forward together in peace. So that's also one reason why much of the rabbinic commentary about our mystery guy, our mystery baby who comes out of all of this, is found in the section of the Talmud on Sota, on the bitter waters.
I always thought that was a little unfair. It's difficult living in this modern age, and you read some of the things in the Torah, and you're like, that would never stand today.
Well, you know, the thing with the bitter waters, as in a bit of an aside, is if you want to understand how Judaism has understood the trial, so to speak, you really have to read through the Mishnah and the Talmud and their details of it. Even though by the time the Mishnah was being written down, and the Talmud certainly, the principles of the bitter waters were no longer applicable. The ceremony had been stopped long before. Their rulings of how it would have been adjudicated, of how it was handled, really rectify a lot of the concerns many people have, and also are a beautiful example of the close reading of the text by the sages to really unpack everything that God gave us in the Torah. And a good reminder that our first reading of a text may be completely wrong, because we just read it as though we think we understand it, and we have to delve much deeper. So highly recommend that section if you can find a good teacher for Mishnah and for Talmud to go through Masechet Sota, that section on the bitter waters. It is a great lesson in how little we really understand about the Torah just by reading through it once on our own.
Manoah promptly followed his wife. He came to the man and asked him, "Are you the man who spoke to my wife?" "Yes," he answered. And Manoah said, "May your words soon come true. What rules shall be observed for the boy?" The angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "The woman must abstain from all things against which I warned her. Not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, or drink wine or other intoxicant, or eat anything unclean. She must observe all that I commanded her." So it's not just grapes, it's any alcohol at all.
Correct.
Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Let us detain you and prepare a kid for you." A goat, not a child. You'd be surprised. But the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, if you detain me, I shall not eat your food. And if you present a burnt offering, offer it to the Lord. For Manoah did not know that he was an angel of the Lord. Oh, okay. I thought Manoah kind of took that on board.
Well, we have this issue in verse 15 where when we read through it the first time, the narrator tells us that Manoah is talking to the malach, to the angel. But just because he's talking to the angel, as the narrator says, it doesn't mean that he is aware that he is talking to an angel. As far as he knows, he is simply talking to a man. The only quote we get from him so far directed to the man is back in verse 11, where he says, are you the Ish? Are you the man? By the way, notice the use of the word Ish that we talked about from last week's Haftarah from Hosea. So Manoah himself has only recognized this man as a man. And that's why, we're hoping at least, he is offering this celebratory meal, and the angel is trying to make it clear that's not going to work. Because I may appear to you as a person, but honestly, I can't sit for lunch.
So Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, what is your name? We would like to honor you when your words come true. So he wasn't quite sure then. The angel said to him, you must not ask for my name. It is unknowable. Now, I've read that same line in a few different translations from a few different backgrounds. And sometimes, in fact, normally it says, why do you ask my name? It is wonderful. So can you let us know exactly what it says?
No. But I can let you know why there are so many different translations. Right? So he does literally ask, why do you ask my name? And then it says, and it is feli, which comes from the same word for wonders. Wonders as in the sense of miracles. And so the question is he just saying my name is wondrous? Is he saying my name is wonderful? Is he saying my name is as mysterious as a miracle? Is he saying that knowing my name would be a wonder and therefore it's impossible for you to do so, that it is unknowable? That's why you get so much commentary and really difficulty coming down to a single translation.
Manoah took the kid and the meal offering and offered them on the rock to the Lord. And a marvelous thing happened while Manoah and his wife looked on. As the flames leaped up from the altar toward the sky, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flames of the altar while Manoah and his wife looked on, and they flung themselves on their faces to the ground. I'm just going to stop there. So did they have a personal altar? Is this a period when people had one at the back of their gardens?
Yes. So basically they're offering up their own sacrifice on their own altar. And in the Hebrew, it's much more apparent, the wordplay, that something wondrous happens, that something that is mafli, which is going back to the angel's response that his name is Feli, and therefore we're supposed to recognize that this is a wondrous occurrence. Because what happens is the angel essentially transcends the visible form that is being experienced and returns heavenwards through the fire, which is something that even Manoah can't ignore. And now he fully recognizes this was not in any way, shape, or form a human being.
The angel of the Lord never appeared again to Manoah and his wife. Manoah then realized that he had seen an angel of the Lord, and Manoah said to his wife, we shall surely die, for we have seen a divine being. But his wife said to him, had the Lord meant to take our lives, he would not have accepted a burnt offering, a meal offering from us, nor let us see these things, and he would not have made such an announcement to us. So as she gets it, that this is, the point of this wasn't to scare them or have them killed. This is a long-term thing.
Yeah, just basic common sense. So you think that God sent the angel to tell us about the child just so he could kill us before the child would even be born? Wouldn't that make God a liar? Come on, Manoah. It's just, I understand you're panicked. I understand you're just getting it, but that wouldn't be insane for God to do something like that. So relax.
The woman bore a son, and she named him Samson. And the boy grew up, and the Lord blessed him. The Spirit of the Lord first moved him in the encampment of Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. So Samson, we won't read about again, I don't think, in this section, in this series, but hopefully we'll go back and do the book of Samson at some point. When it says the Spirit of the Lord first moved him in the encampment of Dan, what exactly does that mean?
Yes, that is the question. So there's a lot of debate within the commentaries exactly about Samson. If we can just pause before we get to that, however, because there's another midrash that I want to get to with regards to the bearing of the child. There's a great line in the midrash that says there are 7 childless women, 7 barren women that are mentioned in Tanakh. You have Sarah, Rebecca, and Rachel and Leah, and then you have the wife of Manoah, you have Hannah, and then you have Zion. And by Zion it means literally the city, the country. And it's a remarkable bit of poetic midrash. And it goes through all of the idea that each one of them, who are mentioned as being barren, are eventually given their children. And the idea is that Zion, as well as it is mentioned throughout many of the prophetic works and psalms as being as though she were barren with the exile of her children, will also be given her children again. That new children will be born to Zion. And this becomes one of the themes that's used in the blessing for the Haftarah. When we read the sections of the prophets in the sanctuary on a Saturday morning or any other holiday, the blessing at the end says that God will gladden Zion with her children. And it's really basing off this idea that the barren woman is the most emotional metaphor for how Zion herself feels with her children in exile. Thankfully, in the modern age, we have a restoration of our people to the land of Zion. But for most of the last 2,000 years, it was simply a hope and a dream. Okay, so back to Samson himself, who does nothing at the end of this Haftarah. His whole career takes place in the next chapter, or the next chapters. I don't know how many of our viewers have read the whole book of Samson, but he's not exactly what you would call a perfect hero. He is an important figure in the sense that he does fight against the Philistines, who were oppressing the Israelites at the time, but nowhere does he fight against the Philistines because they are oppressing Israel. He fights against the Philistines entirely for his own reasons, and in part, and almost entirely because of his own passions and inability to control his anger and emotions and lust. So how do we understand this notion that the Spirit of God moved him? And so there are a couple of different interpretations given by the sages. One is that it means what you might literally think it means, that he heard and understood the word of God, and that he was moved to go forth and do battle against Israel's enemies. And certainly he succeeds in that. The more, I think, powerful explanation is that Samson was going to be born as a powerful, powerful man, and that the laws of the Nazir, the Nazirite vows, and the movement of God in front of him, the Spirit of God, guided his power in a constructive way that would have otherwise been destructive to his own people. We see that he has no problem being quite angry with the Israelites themselves when they're trying to rein him in. And if he hadn't been controlled as a Nazir, at least to some degree, and if God hadn't been, the phrase that's used in the text, shaking a bell in front of him, that is to say, sort of leading him along with a little bell, like, over here, come on, Samson, over here. It's almost like we're trying to redirect Godzilla. Who knows what damage he would have done to the Israelites of his own community. And it's a very interesting idea that I think that what the book of Judges is trying to say is that we were really getting to a bad state when this was our hero. That somebody by any other generational measure and by any normal definition would have been considered a danger to the community was the best we could muster as a weapon against our enemies. And it was only a weapon because of his own passions. When you read through the whole story of Samson, he gets into fights because he wants a woman. And he wants a woman he shouldn't be having in the first place because she's not even an Israelite woman. And then when he gets angry that they try to take her back, he breaks some more stuff. And then he ends up in a position to do more damage because he's fallen in love with another Philistine woman. It's remarkable that he is led by the nose through these various incidences where he ends up almost coincidentally doing damage to the enemies of Israel. And I don't think he was meant to be held up as an example of what a good hero should be, but that God could work miracles even through one such as this.
I think that is a perfect place to end it. And I've got this kind of teenage Hulk idea running through my head right now. I hate you all.
Hulk, but more impulsive.
Okay, so that was this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Thank you very much for joining us again, Rabbi Neely.
Oh, thank you, Jason.
And we'll see you guys again next week. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video so you can find out what we're reading next week. And like and subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.